Hello, thanks for watching this presentation. My name is Kyle Kozar. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner in the Mobility Division here at the city. And today I'm going to talk about the Santa Monica Bike Action Plan Amendment. So in this presentation, I will give context and background for the Bike Action Plan Amendment. We'll give an overview of what the protected bike lanes are, which are the bulk of the improvements in the amendment. And I will give an overview of what the Bike Action Plan Amendment will entail. The Santa Monica Bike Action Plan was adopted by City Council in 2011. This plan laid out a bold 5-year and 20-year vision for the city's future bike network. After nearly a decade of working to implement the Bike Action Plan, the city has made huge strides by installing over 100 miles of bike facilities and hundreds of bike racks, launching LA County's first bike share system, and growing ridership through expanding safe infrastructure and encouragement programming. So why are we doing an amendment to the Bike Action Plan? As many know, 64% of the city's carbon emissions come from vehicle exhaust. The best way to reduce our carbon footprint and to achieve the city's broader sustainability and climate action goals is to reduce the number of vehicle trips and shift as many trips to other modes as possible, especially for short trips around town. And we know that concerns about safety are some of the biggest barriers to getting people out of their cars and trying other modes like biking, scootering, and walking. When the bike plan was adopted, facilities like protected bikeways that we know can greatly improve safety and increase rider confidence were not adopted by regulatory agencies or regularly used, but now they are being widely implemented across the state and the country. So now, with more people on the road than ever, competing for space, it's critically important that the city build on its past successes and continue to improve upon its adopted bike network to ensure the safety for all roadway users. There are a few reasons that now is an important time for the Bike Action Plan amendment. First, in recent years, we've heard increasing calls from the community and from City Council to introduce more protected and safer bikeways as a way to make biking and scootering more accessible to all users, not just the confident commuters. Second, in the midst of the current crisis, few people have discretionary income, and many are seeking low-cost ways to get around and get out for exercise. That's why there have been record sales of bikes over the last few months. We want to take advantage of that trend and encourage people to keep riding so that they don't revert back to driving, especially for short trips around town. And lastly, by having an adopted bike plan amendment, the city will be eligible to compete for infrastructure grant funding, which in a time of statewide and city budget cuts will be critically important over the coming years to improve our bike network. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what protected bikeways are and what they do. There are a few different types of protected bikeways. They can be on street or on the sidewalk, but key is that they always are physically separated from the flow of traffic. And this happens either using curbs, planters, parked cars, or posts. In this image, you can see that there's a one-way protected bikeway that's about 5 to 7 feet wide. There are already several examples of protected bikeways like this in Santa Monica. Recently, the city installed a parking protected bikeway on Broadway from 16th Street to 20th Street. And these two photos, you can see what that example looks like. Sometimes protection can be added to prevent illegal behavior or at certain conflict areas to increase safety. An example of this is what the city installed on 14th Street at Colorado. Protected bikeways can be raised to the sidewalk level as well, which provides a high level of comfort for the rider. An example of this can be seen on Michigan Avenue near Samo High. Or protected bikeways can be contraflow, meaning they go against traffic. It's important in these scenarios that there's sufficient buffer and protection for the cyclist to ensure their safety. An example of this can also be seen on Michigan Avenue near Samo High. Protected bikeways can also be two-way cycle tracks. This means that the protected bikeway is wide enough, 10 to 12 feet wide, for two cyclists to pass each other. The principles of protection remain the same in these examples, though. There are a few examples of two-way protected cycle tracks in Santa Monica as well. One is on Pico between 6th and 7th Streets. And the other is, of course, the well-known Colorado Esplanade. The goal for this amendment is to create a 5-year action plan with realistically attainable projects that would drastically improve the safety and comfort for all potential users, and that could be implemented in a timely fashion and a relatively low cost. Now I'm going to talk through the analysis and how the city developed the Bike Action Plan amendment. In the 2010 land use and circulation element, Santa Monica street grid was broken up into different primary or preferred use designations for roadways. For example, there were transit boulevards, bikeways, arterial roads, primary roads, things like that. A year later, when the Bike Action Plan was created, the 5 and 20-year visions built on the loose road map designations and expanded the bike routes by identifying different bike facility types for each street. At the time, of course, protected bikeways and protected bike lanes did not really exist and were not included in the plan's vision. So while much of this vision has been implemented, the amendment will build on the existing 20-year vision map, but upgrade some of these corridors to protected bike facilities. The Bike Action Plan amendment goes even further by prioritizing and identifying corridor upgrades into 3 categories: 5-year actionable projects, longer-term vision projects, and critical connections that need to be considered for improvement to complete a robust protected bikeway network. The city team underwent a multi-step analysis to identify and prioritize corridors for improvement. We looked at the demand on the corridors, we looked at the level of safety and collisions on the corridors, we looked at what destinations the corridors connected people to, and we looked at how the corridors connected the broader network, both within Santa Monica and to our neighbors in Los Angeles. Using data from shared mobility devices, we were able to see what corridors are being used most today. And of course, we see that the most traveled corridors are ones that already have some sort of bike facility. Then, the existing level of safety and rider stress was assessed by analyzing traffic speeds and volumes, existing bike lane width and parking, and the number of collisions along these corridors. From this, we are starting to paint the picture of where people are riding and what level of safety and stress they are feeling when they're riding the existing network. Then, we narrowed down the list of potential corridors for improvement by thinking through how they complete the network and what destinations they are connecting to, and how they are connecting to Los Angeles as it surrounds the city of Santa Monica on all 3 sides. From there, we had to narrow the list of potential corridors down even further to projects that meet the goal of drastically improving safety and comfort for all potential users and that can be realistically implemented as part of the 5-year action plan. So we dug even deeper into the potential corridors. First, we looked at how parking and travel lanes would be impacted. So, for example, would we have to reduce parking or lane widths? We looked at how many driveways and alleyways are there and how would the access and visibility be impacted by a protected bike facility. We looked at would lane widths be sufficient for larger emergency response and waste management vehicles. And lastly, we considered would there be an impact on transit systems like Big Blue Bus and LA Metro? And if so, could those impacts be solved and how would we solve them? After conducting this intensive review of potential corridors, we arrived at this protected bikeway network vision of attainable projects that could be implemented over the next 5 years as funding becomes available and community support coalesces around individual design and engagement efforts. This network creates a core of super safe, well-connected bikeways that can carry riders east-west and north-south through the city. However, we recognize that while this vision lays out the foundation for the city's work plan over the next 5 years, it leaves much work to do beyond this vision to create a holistic, citywide network. And so, the Bike Action Plan amendment will take the 5-year vision one step further to also identify priority long-term vision corridors for improvements. These corridors, highlighted in yellow, are going to take more time and be more difficult to implement because there will be more trade-offs and complications that the community will need to help us solve, like significant parking lots, for instance. The plan will also identify a 3rd category of priority projects, highlighted in the map in teal, which are critical to building out our complete network, but are going to be considerably more difficult because they would require significant funds or things like wholesale parking removal on the corridor. These corridors will require yet to be developed solutions that include other elements such as greenways, traffic calming, things like that. So that concludes the presentation of the Bike Action Plan amendment. For more information on this project, you can visit www.smgov.net/BAPA, or you can email me, Kyle Kozar, at kyle.kozar@smgov.net, or Carlos Morales at carlos.morales@smgov.net.